and welcome to another episode of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi, and in this segment we bring to you objective questions on a daily basis to help you crack prelims. So let's begin with the practice question of last segment. Which of the following is our objectives of monetary policy? First, to stabilize the business cycle. Second, to provide a reasonable price stability. Third, to provide faster economic growth. Or fourth, exchange rate stability. Now you have to select the correct answer using code given below. A, 1 and 2 only. B, 2 and 3 only. C, 1, 3 and 4 only. Or D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now the correct answer for this question would be D, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. All the statements are correct. Let's move on to the explanation. So monetary policy is the process of regulating the supply of money basically in any economy, and it is done by the monetary authority of the country. If we talk about the monetary authority of the country, that's the RBI. The monetary policy, it generally adjusts the inflation or the interest rate to maintain and sustain price stability and to maintain the predictability of exchange rate in a country. The Reserve Bank of India is the central banking authority, and it controls the monetary policy in conjunction with the central government's developmental plans and agendas as well. So, the Reserve Bank of India is authorized to make monetary policy under the RBI Act of 1934, and the objectives are very simple: to stabilize the business cycle, then to provide reasonable price stability, to provide faster economic growth, exchange rate stability. Right? Moving on. Let's look at our first question of today's segment, which says, consider the following statements with reference to Cancer Genome Atlas TCGA 2020. Now first, it molecularly characterized over 20,000 primary cancer and matched normal samples spanning 33 cancer types. Second, the data which has already led to improvements in the ability to diagnose and prevent cancer remain publicly available for anyone in the research community to use. Now you have to look at the third statement as well. The establishment of an Indian Cancer Genomics Atlas has been initiated by CSIR, Government of India. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A, 2 only, B, 1 and 3 only, C, 2 and 3 only, or D, 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer for this question would be D, that is 1, 2 and 3 only. All these statements are correct. Let's move on to the explanation. The Minister of Science and Technology and the Vice President of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Dr. Harshvardhan, have virtually inaugurated the second TCGA 2020 conference in New Delhi. So TCGA is a landmark cancer genomics program that molecularly characterized over 20,000 primary cancer cells and matched the samples spanning 33 cancer types. There are 33 types of cancer of which they match the samples. This joint effort between the US National Cancer Institute and the National Human Genome Research Institute, it began in the year 2006, and bringing together researchers from other disciplines, diverse disciplines, and multiple institutions. Over the years, TCGA generated over 2.5 petabytes of genomics, epigenomics, transcriptomic and proteomic data. And the data which has already led to the improvements in the ability of the diagnosis, treatment and prevention of cancer, it will remain for public use. So for anyone in the research community, alright? And on similar lines, the establishment of Indian Cancer Genomic Atlas has been initiated by the consortium of key stakeholders and led by CSIR, Government of India. Let's move on to the second question. Consider the following statements with reference to HL2M tokamak reactor. First, it is ESA's largest and most advanced nuclear fusion experimental research device. Second, it uses a powerful magnetic field to fuse hot plasma and can reach temperatures of approximately 10 times hotter than the core of the sun. Now you have to Choose the statements given above which is or are correct. A 1 and 1 only, B 2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is B, that is 2 only. Only the second statement is correct. Moving on to the explanation. Now, China has successfully powered up its artificial sun nuclear fusion reactor for the first time, marking a great advance in country's nuclear power research capabilities. The name is HL2M tokamak reactor. It is China's largest and most advanced nuclear fusion experimental research device, and it's located in Sichuan province and completed last year only. The reactor is often called artificial sun on account of the enormous heat and energy or power it produces. So it uses a powerful magnetic field to fuse hot plasma and can reach temperatures of over 150 million degrees Celsius, which is approximately 10 times hotter. How many times hotter? 10 times hotter than the heat of the sun. Alright, moving on. Scientists have hope that the device can potentially unlock a powerful, clean energy source which is very much needed in the times of today. Moving on, let's look at our next question. Consider the following statements with reference to reactive oxygen species or ROS or oxidative potential. First, the capability of tiny airborne particulate matter to react with oxygen to form highly reactive chemical molecules is oxidative potential. Second, a reactive oxygen species build up in cells may cause damage to DNA, RNA, proteins, and may cause cell death. Now, you have to look at the statements first and then answer this code with the help of this code. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A 1 only, B 2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question would be C, that is both 1 and 2. Both these statements are correct. Let's move on to the explanation. Now, as per a study which has been recently published in the journal Nature, the harmful nature of atmospheric particulate matter is potentially due to its oxidative potential. Now, exposure to fine particle matter with diameter generally below 10 micrometers can pose the greatest health risk because they can not only get deep into our lungs but also in the bloodstream. So the capability of these tiny airborne particulate matters to react with oxygen to form highly reactive chemical molecules is known as reactive oxygen species or oxidative potential. So a reactive oxygen species build up in cell can cause damage to DNA, RNA, proteins, and may even cause cell death, right? Moving on to our next question. Consider the following statements with reference to the 30-meter telescope or TMT. First, India and Russia are the funding partners for the project. Second, TMT is designed for near ultraviolet to mid-infrared observations. Third, it will enable scientists to study gravitational waves from massive objects far away. Look at the statements, options. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A 1 only, B 2 only, C 1 and 3 only, D 1, 2 and 3. The correct answer for this question is B, that is 2 only. Only the second statement is correct. Moving on. TMT, it is an astronomical observatory with an extremely large telescope, and it is an international project being funded by scientific organizations of Canada, China, India, Japan and USA. So its planned location is Mauna Kea on the island of Hawaii, which is the US state of Hawaii. The TMT is designed for near ultraviolet to mid-infrared observations and it features adaptive optics to assist in correcting any sort of image blur or image distortion. So TMT will enable scientists to study fainter objects more further away, objects far away from us in the universe, which gives information about early stages of evolution of the universe. So it will also give us finer details of the closer objects like undiscovered planets and any other objects in the solar system and planets around the universe as well. So, of course, if it will give you better details about far objects, it will give you more intricate details about closer objects. Let's look at the next question. Consider the following statements with reference to postal ballots. First, Election Commission of India is the only deciding authority to permit NRIs to cast their votes from overseas through postal ballots. Second, for allowing voting rights to NRIs, amendments were done to Representation of People Act 1950. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. The correct answer for this question is B, that is 2 only. Only the second statement is correct. Moving on to the explanation. Now, at present, postal ballots are allowed for certain category of voters living in India. The new proposal is for overseas voter. And recently the EC approached the Law Ministry and to permit, why did it approach to the Law Ministry? To permit the NRIs to cast their votes from overseas through the help of postal ballots. So an NRI can vote in the constituency in which her place of residence is there, as mentioned in the passport. Alright, and she can only vote in person, not through postal ballots. She can only vote in person and will have to produce her passport, which is in original form, at the polling station for maintaining and claiming her identity. Voting rights for NRIs were introduced only in the year 2011, and it was done by the amendment to the Representation of People's Act 1950. Alright, moving on. Let's look at our next question. Consider the following statements about asteroids. First, asteroids are rocky, airless remnants left over from the early formation of our solar system. Second, the asteroid belt is located roughly between the orbits of the planets Jupiter and Saturn. Now, which of the statements given above is or are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. Now the correct answer for this question would be A, that is 1 only. Moving on to the explanation. Hayabusa 2 spacecraft from Japan, it has re-entered the Earth's atmosphere after a year-long journey from a distant asteroid by the name of Ryugu. The spacecraft carried soil samples as well as data that could provide clues to the origin of the solar system. The asteroids are also known as minor planets, and they are rocky, airless remnants left over from the early formation of our solar system about 4.6 billion years ago. And if we talk about their location, they are roughly between the orbits of planet Jupiter and Mars, and not Jupiter and Saturn. So although asteroids orbit the sun like the other planets, they are much smaller in size, and the asteroid belt basically is a torus shaped region in the solar system. If we talk about what is a torus shaped object, it's like this, torus. Alright, moving on. Let's look at our next question. With reference to the Monetary Policy Committee, which of the following statements is or are incorrect? A. The Monetary Policy Committee is a statutory body. B. The Finance Minister is the ex officio chairman of the committee. C. It is a 6-member body, out of which 3 will be nominated by the central government. D. Its establishment is recommended by the Urjit Patel Committee. You have to choose the statement which is incorrect. The correct answer for this question is B, that is, the Finance Minister is the ex officio chairman of the committee. Let's look at the explanation. Now, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India has recently decided to keep the policy rates unchanged for the 3rd time now in the bi-monthly monetary policy. And the Monetary Policy Committee, it's a statutory body and institutionalized framework under the RBI Act of 1934 for maintaining price stability while keeping in mind the objectives of development and growth. So the governor of RBI is the ex officio chairman of the committee, the governor, and not the finance minister. Also, the committee will have 6 members. Of these 6 members, the government nominates 3 members, and no government official will be nominated to the MPC. Now, the MPC determines the policy interest rates which is required to achieve inflation target of 4%. The band is plus minus 2%. That means the range of inflation would be 2% to 6%. Alright. Also, an RBI appointed committee led by the then Deputy Governor Urjit Patel, he recommended in the year 2014 the establishment of the MPC. Moving on, let's look at our next question. Consider the following statements about the National Green Tribunal. First, the chairperson is appointed by the central government in consultation with the president. Second, the chairperson and the members shall hold office for a term of 5 years and are eligible for reappointment. The correct answer should be chosen from these particular options. Which of the statements given above are correct? A1 only, B2 only, C both 1 and 2, D neither 1 nor 2. So you can choose from these options. Look at the statements once more. The correct answer for this question is D, that is neither 1 nor 2. None of these statements are correct. Moving on to the explanation. National Green Tribunal, it is a specialized body which is set up under the NGT Act of 2010 for effective and expeditious disposal of cases which relate to the environment protection and conservation of forests as well as other natural resources. The tribunal, it comprises of a chairperson, the judicial members and the expert members, of course. And the chairperson is appointed by the central government in consultation with the CJI, the Chief Justice of India, and a selection committee shall be formed by the central government in order to appoint the judicial members and experts. Also, they shall hold office for a term of 5 years and are not eligible for reappointment. Keep this in mind, they are not eligible for reappointment. Moving on, let's look at our next question. Which of the following statements describe V-shaped economic recovery? We have covered this in one of our in-news series, so please answer this correctly. A, it is a scenario in which the economy after falling struggles around a low growth rate for some time before rising gradually to usual levels. B, in this growth falls and rises but falls again before recovery. C, it is characterized by a quick and sustained recovery in measures of economic performance after a sharp economic decline. D, in this growth after falling stagnates at low levels and does not recover for a long time. The correct answer for this question is C, that is, it is characterized by a quick sustained recovery in measures of economic performance after a sharp economic decline. And according to Finance Ministry's monthly economic review report, the Indian economy is witnessing a V-shaped recovery as the decline in the GDP has narrowed to 7.5% in the second quarter of 2021 from 23.9% in the first quarter of the year, that was from April to June. So V-shaped recovery is the scenario in which an economy quickly recoups lost ground. This is the decline, that is why it's V-shaped, na? It is declining, then recouping and recovering very quickly. That's the V-shaped recovery and gets back on the normal growth trend line. Also, in this, income and jobs are not permanently lost, and the economic growth recovers sharply and returns to the path it was following before decline. Now Z-shaped recovery, if we talk about that, it is the most optimistic scenario in which economy quickly rises after any sort of economic crash. And U-shaped recovery is a scenario in which the economy, after falling, struggles around a low growth rate for some time before coming back on track. Moving on. Now we will talk about W-shaped recovery. In this, growth falls and rises but falls again, and thus recovering, forming a W-like chart. And L-shaped recovery is the when the economy fails to regain the level of GDP even after many years go by. And the shape shows that there is a permanent loss in the economy and its ability to produce as well. Moving on, let's look at our next question. Reform, Recovery and Reconstruction Framework, or 3RF, was launched recently for the recovery of which of the following countries? A. Lebanon, B. Syria, C. Yemen, or D. Ethiopia? The correct answer for this question is A, that is Lebanon. Moving on to the explanation. Now 3RF, it stands for Reform, Recovery and Reconstruction Framework. It was jointly launched by the United Nations, the World Bank and the European Union. And the plan focuses on sustainable development and quick recovery, and also reconstruction efforts to revitalize Beirut in Lebanon. The 3RF includes essential reforms targeted not only to facilitate recovery and reconstruction but also to address the root cause of any sort of crisis. As we know, it's going through a crisis. Beirut is going through such a long crisis, and after that it also went through the Beirut blast, the famous one. Moving on August 4, 2020, a cache of ammonium nitrate which caused a deadly blast at Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, which killed more than 200 people and left 1 million homeless, right? Moving on, let's look at the practice question for our next segment. Consider the following statements with reference to Hampi. Now, Hampi is the 14th century capital of the Vijayanagar Empire, which is located in the Tungabhadra basin. Second, temples of Hampi are noted for the large dimensions, florid ornamentation, bold pillars, which include subjects from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. In 1986, Hampi was declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. You have to choose the correct answers from the codes here. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? A2 only, B1 and 2 only, C1 and 3 only, D 1, 2 and 3. Look at the statements once more and answer it correctly in the comment segment, please. Now, I hope you found this segment helpful and informative. That's it for today. Tomorrow I am going to turn up with another segment. Thank you so much for watching.